Greetings and welcome to another episode of Trinity Radio. I am Jonathan Pritchett, and along with me is
Braxton Hunter.
Very quietly. Say it with more emphasis.
I've been studying Zen Buddhism for a world religions class, so I'm quiet and contemplative.
No. Say it like you mean it.
Braxton.
Along with me is
Braxton Hunter.
There we go. The Braxton Hunter. World famous apologist, evangelist, itinerant preacher, and YouTuber, sought after lecturer.
You're saying all these things so that next time I'll say all those things about you.
I'm saying these things because I can't think of anything else to say during this introduction.
So I'm here with the world-famous Dr. Jonathan Pritchett, known around the world for not only his incredible New Testament scholarship, his awareness of socio-rhetorical first-century matters, but also his incredible snarkiness. And so we've said enough good things about each other now. Let's start talking about some theology, some apologetics, but really more than anything else today, some church issues. We're going to be talking about specifically how Christians treat one another in today's world, how we ought to be a family, we ought to be supporting one another, and yet there are some other organizations out there that actually do a better job than a lot of Christian communities. This was not an idea that we birthed.
Nope.
We don't think this way because we unfortunately sometimes, and this is to our what? Shame, yeah. We think ivory tower theology and philosophy stuff a lot of time. Not just because we're so smart, just because that's what we aspire to.
Yes.
But we ought to be aspiring to something else.
Yes, I mean, we sometimes drift off into, being snobby, elitist, academics, windbags. And we forget, in all of this highfalutin stuff, Christianity doesn't belong in the ivory tower. It's not just a bunch of theological and philosophical abstractions. Christianity is about God putting together a people for himself in Christ, and them living that Christian life. Mm-hmm. And so this topic came to us by way of our producer, Sensei Roth. And so Sensei Roth, please tell our audience why it is you want us, the highfalutin academics, to talk about this issue.
Well, so this concept came up kind of organically, right? We were talking about just business matters here at work, and it got brought up that at our church, Trinity Village Chapel, I would feel comfortable doing business with any single member that we have there. I would feel comfortable having any electrician do the electrical work for my house, any plumber doing the plumbing for my house. I know that at our church, we have the best of the best. And even if they're not going to maybe be the most skilled, they're definitely going to be the most honest. And that made me think of the other conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks about people that go to their church, they look for things they need. An electrician was the one that came up, and they hire someone they go to church with, and this person turns out to not only be incompetent, but also to be dishonest. Yeah. And so it's something that I think I'm blessed that I don't have to personally deal with. But it also raised a weird question. Wouldn't you want the people that you deal with from your own church or Christians in general to be the best and the most honest and not sometimes the most deceitful? So that was really where the question stemmed from.
Yeah, so it seems like there's three issues here. One, there's the issue of community life.
Break it down.
And doing supportive business engagements with others that you are in fellowship with.
Working together.
Yeah, imagine that. Two, there's the danger that when you do that, there might be people that, you just assume go to the person at some other church because the person in your church happens to be incompetent at their job. How do you maneuver that social awkwardness? And three, are there people who intentionally infiltrate the church, who start coming to a church because, contrary to what everyone says about it not being socially advantageous to show up in churches anymore, actually it can be. Some people might.
You're talking about somebody who comes into the church not because they really want a community of faith, but because they want a community of customers.
Right.
And they're going to try to pitch
And
you.
in the South, at least, that's still so you have three issues here. I think that we need to parse out. Now, I personally
Don't be acting like it's only Southerners. I think we're just used to the Southerners.
Yeah.
I think it goes on all over the place.
No, that's probably true.
Yeah.
People are people everywhere.
Yeah.
But I have personal experience with this because I myself was a barber before I was a seminarian.
I didn't know that about you.
You did too know that about me. And Sensei Roth is waving at me, so this is producer interrupting the show.
What do you got to say,
but
Sensei Roth?
We'll see what he has to say.
I didn't mean to talk about this, but there is absolutely an instance of that occurs within our community. I won't name the company, but they are a large international company. My friend happens to be very high up at them, and their owners are great Christian men, but they've said specifically, you will never get promoted at this company if you don't go to this church with us. And it's one of the large, what we would call country club churches here in our town.
Why wouldn't they want, now I'm just thinking about the side of it, the marketing side of it. Why wouldn't they want to have their people go to a different church so they can, victimize those people? But the
Because
idea is,
they are the ones who want them in church are decent Christian people.
so the idea is that all these people that work for this company, or the people that might have influence, will go to this one church. I imagine it's a sizable church, for the purposes of getting all the business we can get. That's what we're talking about?
Well, no, they're an international company. They don't make money out of Evansville. They ship to Australia, they ship to Korea. I mean, they ship everywhere, but it's that you will never be, they've got 1,000 employees. You'll never be a top-ranking employee at our company if you don't go to our church. It's not enough to be a Christian. It's now you have to go to our church. So when we're talking about kind of the nepotism that can occur, that was an example that I thought of.
Yeah, okay.
That might be a bad example, but
Well, no, you never give bad examples. He's great with examples. Most of them are karate examples. But here's the thing. We often are so cynical. You got something negative to say? Okay. We often are so cynical about things that we were sitting around talking about all this, and I said, guys, frankly, I got to tell you, I have a counter example. I have a positive experience that just happened to me this very week where the church is involved. Because I run into these people that are like, that they're a Mason or whatever, and if you ask them, well, what do you get out of that, or why are you a Mason? What they'll sometimes say is, well, I know that if I'm in another city and my car breaks down and I need some help, there's going to be a Mason there who's got to help me. That's part of it. He's got to help me, and I always think to myself, well, shouldn't the church be that way? Yeah, but the church isn't that way. It should be that way. If they were, we wouldn't need the Masons. But honestly, this week, so we're trying to get this YouTube channel where the video content for this show is hosted off the ground. And so I just went to Facebook and I began searching for Facebook groups that had to do with Christian YouTubers. I thought maybe there's a community like that, and maybe I can, promote the videos or find a new audience or whatever. Well, I did. In fact, the very first place I went, and I can't think of it's like Christian YouTubers or something. There's a few of those. But I went into this one and I said, I don't know if it's okay, but here's my channel. I don't know what you guys think about it, but here it is. Could I get some feedback, some support? And also I'd appreciate the subscribes and the views and stuff like that. Well, within 2 minutes, the person who the main admin for that group shows up and is like, absolutely, I just watched your video. I just subscribed, and I hope that everyone else will too. We always try to support each other this way. Then, Pritchett, I get this Southern Baptist pastor. He's a Southern Baptist. I think it's a missionary Baptist church. But he's like, hey, I've looked at your channel. Here's 2 or 3 things you need to do that you're not doing. One of those is open up the comment stream. So please comment on the videos. We're not too scared anymore to allow for comments because we found out we can delete them. But maybe I need to turn on the Pritchett Prime box for myself. But they were so supportive, and every day they're offering more support, and they're doing it with each other. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is how the church should be. This is how we all should be. And the last thing I'll say on this little rant is that when we first started the group, the apologetics group that I taught at Center of Hope Church for a while, it started as a Francis Chan study. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of the theologian and scholar Francis Chan?
I've heard of Francis Chan. I haven't read a single book he's written.
What have you heard of Francis Chan?
Yeah, we did a marriage study that he ran. I ran, was it Crazy Love?
Crazy Love. That's his
his
signature book. Yeah. So we watched that, and then we moved on to something that was a little bit different. But one thing he said that has hung with me is he said he was talking to his like deacons and church leaders, and he was like, look at him. He's trying to still make sure he's taller than I am.
I like to be taller than you.
But
It's the only time I am.
that's not how Christians should be. You should be supporting my height. You should be talking
You're
about.
always taller than me. You should be happy for me supporting me for finally getting a chance to feel taller than you.
I'm esteeming others as higher than myself.
There you go.
But
That's the right attitude.
But Chan was sitting there talking with his leaders, and he says he said that they decided together that, you know what, why do we have life insurance? And they goes, well, because we might die and our spouse. And he said, yeah, but I'll take care of your family. We'll take care of your family. If you die, we'll all take care of them. You don't have to worry about it. Don't be wasting your money on life insurance. And everybody in the group looking at that was like, what? But that is the inverse. We shouldn't be looking at it going, what? That should be it, man. That should be the thing. In fact, I've often thought about the public school versus Christian school, and trust me, I know that we've got incredible public school teachers in a lot of schools, and a lot of Christian teachers.
And a lot of terrible public school teachers.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, yeah, we don't need, I'm not into this, the
They're
idolization.
Sacred. Yeah, no, they're not sacred.
Yeah, the hero worship of all public school teachers. Right. Just because you're a public school teacher doesn't mean you're a good one.
I had some terrible,
just because you're a preacher doesn't mean you're a good one.
Yeah, I've had some terrible public school teachers in my day.
That's another show. But the thing about it is, if the public school ever ceased to be or something, the church, I think, could meet that challenge.
Yeah.
We have great private schools, and man, there ain't nothing wrong with studying the Bible in those Christian schools.
Okay, so I have a little bit of personal experience before the producer interrupted me, and then you talked for an extraordinarily long time about Francis Chan.
You know, I'll just tell you right now. No. I'm about to cut you off again. Here's the thing. Do you know how... Let's go listen to some previous episodes, and let's see how many rants I quietly sit here and then positively comment after you get done.
Yeah. Well, I just want to shift gears back to the topic.
Am I right, Sensei Roth?
You're absolutely right.
He says that because he's the president. That's why. But see, look, I'm trying to.
You don't know what to say. You're speechless.
I'm trying to stay on the topic the producer asked us to talk about, which was not Francis Chan.
Oh, that was spot on. What the producer asked us to talk about.
Well, the one bit about the life insurance thing. That
Go on and say your thing. Go on and say your thing.
So, true story about being a barber in a church.
Are we talking about barbers again?
Yes, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. Because I have experience with the topic that the producer asked us to talk about.
About barbering?
No, about community in the church. Because I was a barber, I had a trade, and I was a member of a church, and the people in my church came to let me cut their hair. At least a lot of the men.
Dudes.
Just the dudes. I'm a barber. Didn't do. If
you're not allowed, right?
Ladies, if you wanted your hair cut like a dude, I could do it.
The women aren't allowed to come in a barbershop, are they?
Well, they would come into mine and bring their
something.
Kids, right?
Oh, you can come in if you're bringing a young boy, but that's
right.
it.
Yeah, I'm not cutting your hair, lady, unless you want your hair cut like your little boys. But I had a chop shop, men's barber shop, straight razor shave, straight razor on the neck, hot lather, all the wonderful stuff. And the people in the church supported that. And was I the best hairstylist barber in Maumelle, Arkansas? Probably not. I'd like to think so, but probably not. Friends back at home, I went to barber school with some buddies. They probably say, no, I was. But my church did support me and that helped me, because when you're talking about being in business for yourself and you get paid based on working or not working. So if you don't have clients, you don't get paid. And so I made it a point to buy insurance from people that I went to church with. I rented from landlords that I went to church with. And I saw that firsthand in our church. If my car broke down, I went to the shop that was ran by people. Cedar Heights Baptist Church, one of the best in North Little Arkansas, one of the finest Southern Baptist churches in the world, by the way, for this very thing and for this very reason. They did exactly the ideal as best they could. I mean, not every church is going to meet every need, but if you opened a restaurant, they would eat at it.
I really enjoyed that rant.
Now you're ready for me to shut up so you can get back to. But I did want to. I did want to say that things like that, you've got to be intentional about it in the church. So it doesn't necessarily happen organically. Especially the larger the church, the less you know about the people with whom you go to church. So you got to be intentional. You got to find out who does what. And if you're going to give your money away, you can give it away to nameless, faceless corporations. Or maybe even if you actually have to pay a little bit extra to pay a local fellow that goes to your church, you're helping to feed his wife and kids.
Yeah, because stop right there.
Or her husband and
stop,
kids.
stop.
Yeah.
I want you to read what this says right here. Look.
Your images are ready for download.
Do you know where that is? That's from a faceless corporation. I went and had headshots done today for stuff. Yeah. And maybe I'll put them on the screen. But I went and had those done when that is exactly the kind of thing that some Christian with a photo business around, like a photography business around here, I could have got him to do it.
Or her.
Or her. That's absolutely right. This is not a show about sexism, okay? You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that to me, right? But that's a good example of this, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. So what you're saying is you failed today.
I don't know a photographer who's a Christian.
Yeah. Well, I would put it like this. You start with doing business, if you can, with people in your own local congregation. And if there's a need outside of that, you find out through your Christian friends.
Yeah, this would be a good thing for a local association of churches to do.
Yeah.
To work together, to have a bulletin board or a Facebook group or something, because the thing about it is, you're not just you're a member of your local church, but the New Testament model is there's a church in a town, right?
Right.
Here's the church at Antioch, the church at Ephesus, the church at Laodicea. Don't be like that one. But there's there are churches in these places, and everyone in your community who's a Christian is a part of the church, right? So you can find someone and support each other a little bit. Be helpful with each other. What else do you want us to say about...
What about the issue that he brought up in his openings? What about the issue of...
Sleazy ones.
No, we'll get to that one last. What about the issue of the incompetent ones that...
Oh, like they have a business, but they're just not good?
Right. How do you... And Sensei Roth, I think, is one of the most...
Or if you have two of the same kind of business in the church.
Well, that you could split equitably, I think. But Sensei Roth, since you are by far the most polite person in this room, what do you say to somebody? Yes, actually, even more.
He probably is.
Yeah.
I was arguing with myself about it.
You thought?
And I thought Sensei Roth wouldn't argue with himself about it. He just let himself be right about it.
Which proved that was right. So, so Sensei Roth, how would you handle that if someone in the church, let's say they were a barber like I was, and I know that you cut your own hair, but let's say you didn't, and you were going to a hairstylist, and his
hair looks fantastic,
right? And they solicited you for, would you come get your hair cut? But you know that if you do, you're going to get your head jacked up. How do you handle that?
He would absolutely not do that.
So this is what I would say. Okay, as the pastor, what I would do is if the congregation's saying, I got two electricians, I'm going to use an example because this is the example that was brought to me. A generator was installed at my wife's grandparents' house by one of their church congregants, and the generator was installed improperly. The wiring was run bad, and the generator actually short-circuited because of this. It's like a $5,000 piece of equipment. When they brought in another electrician, that electrician said, I can't believe that the first guy did what he did. There's no reason he should have done it that way. What I would do upon hearing that is I would talk to the more knowledgeable electrician, and I would say, we're the church. We're not competing business. Why don't you go talk to him? Especially with electricians that have apprenticeships. Why don't you go talk to him? Maybe he's never done that before. Why don't you invite him out on the next job that you do? Why don't you offer a helping hand? Because if someone really loves what they're doing, they're going to want to be better at it. And so I would like to think that first electrician, he just didn't know what he was doing. Maybe he got in over his head. Maybe he misunderstood the concept. But again, that's a helping hand scenario where, in theory, these are two competing businesses, but the more knowledgeable business
goes to the first one and goes, I see that there's a problem.
But Sensei Roth, I don't want to put you on the spot here because you're one of my favorite humans. But that's the great thing about analogies is we can always tweak them to make them worse. So let's imagine that you do that and you've gone through this whole rigmarole. You've tried to help this guy out several times and it just turns out he's just bad. I mean, he's just bad. What do you do?
Well, so here's the thing. If you're really just bad at what you do, in theory, the market's going to dictate what happens to you.
Yeah.
Because just by word of mouth, if someone asks me...
But you're keeping them afloat with all your church members, telling them that they're in sin if they don't go to him.
First of all, I wouldn't tell anybody they're in sin for not doing that. But
Yeah.
if you've got a good electrician and a bad electrician, this really simple analogy of ours, this binary scenario. Everybody goes to the good electrician, the bad doesn't have any work.
Let capitalism sort it out.
No, I think this is one thing that I think, getting into pastoral ministry here, if people are really generally bad at what they do, it means they stumbled into a field for the wrong reasons and they ended up without a love for it, typically. Or they did it because they thought it was what they needed to do at the time, but turns out they just stink at it.
In which case, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Be straight with them about that and try to help them find what God really wants them to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that would be a good thing. But my example is, that I still want an answer, Sensei Roth, is one barber in the church, he stinks.
Why are we still talking about barbers? Because you didn't want to hear what he thought about the kind of somewhat non-personal electrical work. You want to know what he thinks about what's going on the top of his head.
Okay, let's just go.
No, I like it.
Okay, either that or
no, that's good.
Or just a stinky electrician and no other electrician.
You know, when you go to this guy, do you feel like you're in the hot seat?
No.
When you go to this guy, we'll call him Jonathan. when you go to this guy, it's going to be a train wreck.
It's going to be a jacked up haircut, which is what I'm worried about is people from my home church watching this and saying, "No, Braxton's right on the nose."
Now, the question you're asking me isn't. As a Christian, should you support a business that isn't giving you what you want, or it's actually giving you something that you don't like?
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't think of anything, but I don't need ice cream. I just don't like it. I think probably because I'm lactose intolerant. I don't know.
What is the matter with you?
Yeah, that's something we're going to have to get to the bottom of.
My family, my in-laws, they love it.
Did you say you're not lactose intolerant?
I don't know. What I'm saying, I don't like
You're
it.
scared to try to find out.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't eaten it since I was a little kid. So if you, Dr. Jonathan Pritchett, opened up an ice cream shop, I love you to death, and we go to church together, but I'm not going to go to your ice cream shop because I don't want ice cream. But I don't know. But then again, now I'm feeling conflicted because I'm like, well, I probably should.
I'm just thinking about a business that Jonathan Pritchett runs that sells ice cream, but yet also gives haircuts, and how I would stay away from that place.
Right. Not the most sanitary ice cream parlor for sure.
Yeah.
But if you know that somebody's going to jack up your head,
he's saying don't do it.
You just say, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to."
That's not a black and white one, and that's why it's hard. But
that's why he's ducking the tough questions here on Trinity Radio.
No, he's saying what a good apologist says when he don't know the answer, which is you just say, "I don't know."
You don't know the answer.
Okay, now ask me.
I have to pray about it.
Would I personally go and get a bad haircut from you? No.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think it's enough to try to stop it. If I had a way to help you, I would try to do that too.
Yeah. But generally speaking, all things being equal, if you can either get this burger joint or that burger joint, this burger joint is the one that has members of your church, or even if just the wait staff attends your church, and that's a way works at that restaurant, and that's a way that your tips could go help to pay their bills or whatever. Things like that, all things being equal, not the uncomfortable ones. But all things being equal, we should support the endeavors of the people with whom we attend church. That to me, I think is fundamentally Christian. I think it's fundamentally biblical.
Yeah, and the last issue that we were talking about, I think is the easiest, frankly. It's the easiest. It's the easiest to arrive at an answer about, which is, say you have someone who, and I've never had this experience, but where they've crept in unawares to try and get you to go to their horrible ice cream and haircutting emporium, and you have decided, you can tell, like, you went once, and somehow or other he swindled you.
Yes.
Because there's a bunch of hair that he knowingly put in your ice cream. I don't know what it is, but somehow he does you wrong, and he knows it, and he meant to do it, and he took your money, and he did not deliver what he said. What do you do with a swindler? That, to me, is the simplest explanation. Church discipline.
Yeah, church discipline. But first, not everything is going to be that cut and dry, because at least not at first, because some people are going to be unregenerate people passing themselves off as, especially if they know your church community is known in the community for doing this, for being supportive internally, that's going to attract people, and it's also it's not going to just attract good people, it's going to attract people who want to be there just for the benefits of knowing that I have a new customer base or client base. And so that's not going to be easily detectable unless they're outright swindling. But if they're just going because it's socially advantageous for them to, especially in this context of a financial benefit, that's hard. That's harder.
Or maybe not even church discipline. Maybe just, again, let the market, even within the church, like, it's not what the church is about. And there's one of the things that irritates me more than anything else is treating religion and the the arena of the local church as a consumer product or a place to spread consumer products. But if it happens organically in relationships, I think is what we're talking about. And if you've got this guy, if you got this guy that comes into the church and he just starts doing this, he just starts promoting this stuff, well, then I tell you, hey, Roth over here, I went and had my car worked on at his body shop and he ripped me off. Don't go to Roth. And before we know it, it's clear that guy's not
sure.
Or
what if he does an excellent job? He's just the only reason why, and you can't read people's hearts, but the only reason why he's there is just for the social benefit.
Well, there's like with Facebook groups, for example. Yeah. Some Facebook groups say in their rules and stuff, hey, if you come in here and just start posting your own stuff, we're booting you out. That's not what this is about. This is about relationships, and this is about talking and debating and whatever. But then there are those groups that say, yeah, post whatever you want. Well, the thing is, the local church, I think, should be more like the first. The local church should be, no, come here to come to know Jesus. And you'll find a family here, and you'll find people with whom you can talk. But you know what happens in those groups where you don't just post stuff? I don't go there and just post blog articles and stuff. But I start talking and interacting with people, and you know what happens? People begin to appreciate what I'm saying, hopefully, and they begin to see value in my thoughts. This doesn't happen very much, but they do that. And then guess what they do? They say, hey, have you got a website? Hey, have you got a blog?
Right.
I understand you. And it happens organically.
Yeah. Well, I do think there ought to be, especially in the churches that lack this kind of environment, there needs to be an intentional call to do business with your brothers and sisters within the local congregation, or maybe Christians in other congregations if we can't meet a certain normal day-to-day need like that. I think that the risks, whether it's a swindler, which you can take care of, or somebody who's just going to be a hanger-on, I think those do not outweigh.
I've never met one.
Yeah, those aren't good enough reasons to not get intentional and not be serious about trying to spend your money with your brothers and sisters as opposed to other places to eat, other places to get your hair cut or whatever. The risks don't outweigh. They're not big enough risks to take to avoid doing it. Yeah. Because it really is the Christian thing to do, in my opinion. So you've got to become intentional if your church community is not like this, but you also got to be mindful that whatever hang-ups you might have about this aren't good enough reasons to not do it.
Well, all you got to do to be intentional. See, what I'm trying to stay away from is the concept that basically when you walk into the church, you see ads everywhere. I mean, that's not what we're doing. The way you become intentional about it is just perhaps the pastor says at some point, maybe he's got a sermon where he preaches about this, and he just says, hey, you know what? We ought to try to support each other here. And if you can, help each other out with your businesses and all that. Maybe Adam's auto body repair, whatever, is on hard time, is experiencing hard times. And the pastor says, hey, we need to pray for Adam. And if you have an issue that Adam could be a help with, go talk to him afterwards. See what he has to say, that sort of thing. That's an organic thing. That's a natural way. And it does advertise. But it's not like the church just becomes a bulletin board for the community about what businesses there are, because that, I think, would cause it to fester with interlopers.
I mean, one thing that I think is, there's two issues you brought up. So we've got people that are coming to church because it's more of a social setting, or they think they're going to promote their business through it. Or you've got people that are in the church for ill-gotten gains. They're trying to lie to them. And here's the worst part. I don't want my congregation to experience hardship for any single member, but ultimately, I don't care why you came to church. I care that when you leave church, you know Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I came to church as a social setting. I went with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, thank the Lord. But I went with her, and I wasn't angry. I wasn't unintentional about finding God. I just didn't have that desire, but I got saved. So I'm grateful that a social setting allowed me to meet and love Jesus Christ. The other thing is, I hope that any single person in the congregation would raise their hand and go, oh, by the way, I'm a sinner and I'm lost. I hope you give me that clear of a sign, because then the pastor should immediately go talk to them and say, your actions in no way reflect a Christian. I don't even want to talk about you stealing from people. Do you really know Jesus? Because they don't. You and I, in this context, we know this person doesn't. But if you're swindling your other church members to gain a buck, you don't know Jesus, and let's throw the money aside. That's an earthly worry. Now I'm worried about, do you really know Jesus Christ? So I hope my congregation raises their hand and say, I don't know.
Yeah, and I would also say that just the church being that kind of community, reflecting these kind of values, is itself a good witness for the people who maybe they're not intentionally swindling, but the first example, the guy just wanders in there because of the social thing. Like, you got saved for those kinds of things. If they find the community, they'll find the Jesus who grounds the community, I think.
Yeah, all you got to do is have a good pastor. So Adam is, we think, soon to be, he's already currently a pastor at a local church, soon to be probably more in a lead pastor situation, however you want to frame that up. I forget what the buzzwords are with pastors each month, but he's going to be in a position like that, and I would hope that he would have someone come in who's a new person in the church and say, hey, Dr. Pritchett, we're glad you're here. What needs have you got? How can we pray for you? What's going on? And then when you start talking about your needs, maybe it's a medical problem, maybe it's whatever, he can say, hey, you know what, Dr. Pritchett, we've actually got a guy. I want you to talk to him because he's got a business that I think could really help you out. You know, that's sort of a thing. Here's a little bit of Donald J. Johnson for you, who has taught at Trinity before. He always makes this big spiel, and people may have heard me say this in the past, maybe not, but I detest, and this is not exactly what we're talking about today, but it's in the arena, I detest the treating of the church itself as a consumer product. So what we often do when we talk to someone about why they should come to church, I think most people today, if you ask the question, and I watched him do this, I watched Donald J. Johnson do this in a class here, where he was asking, what do you think most people will tell others about why they should come to your church? What do you think most of your church people will tell others about why they? And they said, well, we got a great coffee bar. We've got a gym, and the kids play basketball. We've got a great kids program where they sing a bunch of songs and stuff. Oh, our worship band. Oh, we've got the best guitar player. It's unbelievable. When they're doing, How Great Is Our God, the 10-minute guitar solo is unbelievable. You know, that is kind of stuff they say. Well, or we do a car show during the summer, or we do whatever. And he says, this is not the right reason why you should be telling people the value of your church. It's not that your church should not have amenities like that. And there's nothing wrong with those things being there. And fine, you know, maybe Adam, when he was lost, was more likely to come to Center of Hope if they had a coffee bar. I don't know. But there's nothing wrong with those things. But the ultimate reason why someone should be coming to your church and why you should be trying to get them to your church is because we believe that we can tell you the truth about the nature of reality and how you can have a relationship with a Father who loves you, a Jesus who loves you, how you can serve him all the days of your life. Amen. Oh, and by the way, how you can avoid condemnation and on the way to hell and go to heaven. Yeah. But in that order. But see, here's the thing. What most people do, and this is what he says, and I love it, is some woman has had a divorce. Now she's a single mother, and she's thinking, okay, well, how am I going to get my needs met? Well, the local megachurch has a guy who makes me feel better about where I am, frankly, after this horrible divorce. Every time he preaches, I feel better, and usually he even quotes a Bible verse occasionally. So I'm going to go there on Sunday morning. But then on Monday, the local mosque has a great basketball program for the kids after school. So on Monday, we're going to go there. And then on Thursday afternoon, there's a yoga class at the Hindu temple, and it makes me feel great. I don't know what they're talking about. They're saying all this stuff in some other language, but it feels great, and I get to do my yoga. And they treat the church and religion like a consumer product. I get my needs met here. I get my needs met here. I get my when the underlying message, the things that matter the most, are completely forgotten. And so when it comes to this sort of thing, I just want to caution that, number one, we need to make sure this is not the foremost thing we're pushing on people. But of course, the three of us know that's not what we're doing.
Right.
So I think the organic way to do it is the pastor needs to be aware, and if he's a good pastor, he will be aware of where all the resources are. Okay?
So
Good.
In psychology, there's a Maslow created this thing called his hierarchy of needs. It's the 7 hierarchy of needs that Maslow has that you need to be a healthy, happy, functioning human being. And they fall right in line with what we're talking about. The first one, the very bottom one, is safety. And I think what we see in Syria and war-torn countries right now, if you don't have safety, if your every waking moment isn't assured, you're not worried about death, you're not going to worry about anything else. All the way up to the very top one is self-actualization. And so it goes from safety to shelter to food, and it works its way up. And so I think that ultimately we do need to, I'm not talking about us, I'm not talking about you and me. If you've known me in the last 2 years, I don't miss a meal. My wife is very good about taking care of me like that. I've actually put on weight, unfortunately. That's a good problem to have. But there are people in our country and in this world that are starving to death. They're not going to be as worried about the relationship they have with Jesus Christ if they are literally looking for food and they haven't eaten in 3 days. So I think that as a church, we need to take care of the full spectrum of it. And the counterpoint to that is, so there is a local mosque here in town. And the organization my wife works for, they're a Christian center, and they have a food pantry, and they offer diapers and things like that, and they have a ton of Muslim women that will come and pick up food and diapers because the husbands will not provide. I'm not saying it's like this for all Muslim communities, I'm not saying it's like this for anything, but I'm telling you specifically, this example is, they know that on Mondays and Wednesdays, the Muslim women come in and they're looking for diapers, formula, and food for their children because their husbands won't provide. And they try to witness to them, they really do, but once they get these women into a situation where they're more stable, then they can talk to them about Jesus Christ. But until that point, they just...
Well, now, what you're describing, I'm 100% in agreement with, and so was Jesus, frankly. Because what you're talking about is offering a cup of cold water. What you're saying is someone has basic needs that need to be met, and this can be actually a segue to the gospel. I actually think it's not a good idea for missionaries to only do one or the other. Only go preach the gospel or only go build a roof on someone's house.
Right.
We need both. And the church ought to be both, in any good church. So like food pantries, I'm all for. Clothing banks, I'm all for. And I think that's actually a good way to share the gospel. I'm talking about consumer product Christianity, where the whole thing, because if the reason that the lady is coming to your church is because the preacher has a way, he just got a way about, or the band is just great. Well, all that's going to take for her to go be gone from your church
is a better preacher.
And be at a cult is for a better preacher at the cult. And, if a successful cult usually does have a pretty good charismatic guy, right? That's one of the basic ideas of cults. Or a better guitar player who has a 20-minute guitar solo in "How Great Is Our God" or whatever. So I don't disagree with you. I don't think we're in disagreement. What I'm saying is when we foster a culture in the United States or in our local community where what we're saying to people is that the reason they should come to our church is because we offer these amenities better than anyone else offers these amenities. What are we doing? The ultimate thing is, hey, we think that there's something going on in this world that people are missing. Yeah. We think that there is a Savior and that we think this Bible stuff is true. Now, after you have that conversation, you might say, by the way, since you're going to church with me on Sunday, we got a heck of a coffee bar. And our guitar player plays a 10-minute guitar solo, which, frankly, that's obviously a joke. I don't care for guitar solos in worship music. But the point is, so I think you're right, and the Bible thinks you're right?
Well,
yeah.
I guess...
If a church is doing exactly what we opened the show with, everybody benefiting one another, that's a good modern equivalent to, having all things in common, right? I mean, that's totally eisegesis of Acts too, but we're not going to all go sell our stuff and then just, distribute it. Right. But I mean, and of course they didn't do that. You get that in Acts 2, you get that in Acts 4, but the further away it got from Israel in the mission, you don't hear anything about that at all.
Yeah, and in the pastorals you hear about, here's what you wealthy people should do.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So But there's still, and when you take all of the biblical data on this, there's still an underlying notion of helping one another meet each other's needs.
Well, sure, absolutely.
Right? And that's a fundamental biblical principle that you can do by following, by doing your commerce with your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Now, what interesting when you brought up competition, since in the ancient world they would have seen it like this: since God is the divine patron for all believers, rich or poor alike, you couldn't have patronage within the body of Christ. They were trying to use the brother-sister language to foster that fictive kinship among the people in the church, to where they thought of one another as family. And in family in the ancient world, there wasn't challenge for post competition. There wasn't supposed to be anyway. There wasn't supposed to be patronage, because it was supposed to be, it was honorable to look after family. And so when you consider everyone that you are in worship with family, then, like you said, this kind of being organic in meeting each other's needs and helping bear one another's burdens, so to speak, that forms about. The reason why I say we need to be intentional about it is because I think we've lost that in the West, because maybe it's due to just not thinking about it, not prioritizing
I think you're right.
it. But I think because, especially in evangelical churches, we get, even at the pastor pew level, it gets so theological and doctrinal that our ecclesiology, and by that I mean a robust, what does it mean to be a church, has gotten lost, because everyone wants to imitate the famous pastors and preach either the most uselessly practical sermon. And I say uselessly practical because the practical stuff is 7 steps to do this or 7 steps to do that. It doesn't apply to most people in the thing. They just think it's a good speech. Or they're trying to imitate the MacArthurs and Pipers out there who are so doctrinal that they don't give enough application to it, that it's just doctrine. But like you talked about, the New Testament was that in last show. The New Testament, what it means by doctrine, is like your morality and your behavior and your treating one another.
Some of the time.
Yeah.
It can be go both ways.
Right.
Yeah.
But we leave that element out of our, I think the evangelical church has gotten away from that you don't find in other communities in the global church. So,
well, we had a local pastor here, one of the larger churches in Evansville. And they're a very, progressive. I don't mean politically progressive, but they're one of the trendier churches around. And he is extremely moving, because what he did was they grew really fast, and everyone in the town knows it. And yet something happened. I'm not even 100% sure exactly what happened, but he got up and in tears streaming down his cheeks, he said, "I've made this thing so much outward oriented," which there is always going to be that outward oriented aspect. It's outreach, it's evangelism. But he said, "I was so focused on that I forgot that we're a church, that we're a family, that we're a community of faith." And this began to fall apart because something happened. Yeah. It's not my business because it's not my church, not the local church that I'm a part of. But so there is that community aspect to it. And honestly, here's another dimension that may shock some people, and maybe some people are watching waiting for this to be said, right? But it's kind of okay if you get defrauded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If somebody does you wrong, the way I imagine it, the most godly people I know, because the Christian message is to turn the other cheek, right? The Christian message is to carry it further. And so if I go to Roth's body shop, and Roth is an auto predator in this sense, and I get done wrong and I lose, let's say $1,000. Basically, I have to go get it redone after he had it, and now I'm $1,000 out. I think my response to him should be, "Listen, Adam, can we go to lunch? I want to talk to you." Yeah. And I just share with him. I feel like what happened was not the right thing. I'll just say, I kind of think you did me wrong. It's okay that you did me wrong, but I think you and I both know that you did me wrong. Are you feeling a little bit personally ashamed in this analogy right now?
I was enjoying
because your facial expressions were like,
"Hey, I'm the one who's putting hair in people's ice cream, so he can."
You should definitely feel wrong.
What I was most impressed with by that. Sorry, that book wasn't being impressed.
You were immersed in the analogy.
I was, because so that should be the most Christian reaction. So you're going to deceive me. You're going to steal from me.
Yeah.
The most Christian reaction should be honesty and sincerity.
Yeah, and I don't want the money back, and I'm not going to tell anyone even.
Right.
unless you keep doing it, you know. But this is between us. But I want to talk to you about how maybe I can help you be accountable in this area or something. I mean, I really think that's it, man. If you're going to do this, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. If
our church does do this.
I already rely on you for stuff. So, but the thing is, if we're going to do this, then part of the deal I think that we're making is I might get defrauded. And if I get defrauded, it's going to be okay. Obviously within reason.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a counselor and I send my wife to you as a counselor and you take advantage of her or something and act unethical, okay, we got bigger problems because I have a responsibility to my wife and all that. And other people that might go to you.
But the bad haircut, auto mechanic.
The bad haircut, the auto mechanic, which is really what we're talking about probably most of the time with this stuff. Just be willing to be defrauded.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, the risks aren't significant enough to avoid doing this in a church congregation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, have we run out of steam?
Well, I just wanted to ask Sensei Roth if we met the burden of his...
He met his own burden. What this show was, we rambled, and then we'd be like, what do you think?
You told us to do it, so...
No, honestly, how do you feel?
Yeah, that's absolutely the answer I would want. I mean, that's even more so because you brought in 3 facets to a question that I wasn't thinking about the 3 facets. I just thought, why don't we do that more? Because I didn't have an answer to it. Ultimately, sometimes I am naive, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, absolutely, I'll do business with Christians. What if a Christian defrauds you? Okay. Well, then it's going to sound silly. It's going to sound bad. And I've never been defrauded enough that it's really, really, really financially impacted me. Like, now we're looking at bankruptcy. But I would be grateful for that opportunity. You mean I spent $200 more than I could have, but someone out there showed me they were a lost person? Because I just can't believe that a Christian had really treated me.
Yeah, let's highlight that point because I think you said something that didn't get proper attention, which is if someone does something like that, then it kind of puts a sign over their head. This person needs Jesus, or at least needs to get right with him, right? Yeah. And that is a valuable point. And it brings out the question of, number one, what are you based on how you handle that tells us why you think you're in this church. Why are you a Christian? Why are you on earth? Because your purpose as a believer for being on this earth is to love God and love others as yourself, and and that'll involve glorifying Him. So if we're here to love God and love others as ourselves, glorify Him, then that means one of our chief concerns is going to be reaching other people for Christ. But way down the list of our concerns is losing $1,000 on a bad business deal. Right?
Yeah, well, that's a big concern for people who don't have $1,000 to lose.
Well,
but then again, if that happens, the church should be there to help the defrauded one too. Yeah. It all comes back around to this is just be a church.
Well, somebody says somebody's going to say you guys are describing something a bit idealistic. Francis Chan, most of all, don't have life insurance. What? I had a guy who was a fellow brother who was a pastor. Who's as strong a Christian as us, as anybody in this room, probably stronger than me. And he sat at a table with me and said to me, because there was a brief period of a month where I didn't have life insurance, and he told me I was wrong and in sin for not having life insurance, because what about my wife and who's going to take care of her? And I had just seen the Francis Chan thing. I looked back across at him and I said, aren't you going to take care of my wife? And he's like, what? I said, well, obviously I didn't mean that he was going to have to do that, and I don't anticipate dying anytime soon. But the bottom line is that is extreme, but yeah, we are describing an idealistic situation, because if you don't fire at the ideal, then if you aim down here and the target's up there, well, you're definitely going to miss, and you're probably going to hit lower than you mean. Yeah. I think about when I was 11 years old or something, I had a pellet gun, and did you guys have pellet guns?
No. Still have one.
Okay, all right.
I shoot them squirrels.
Well, I need to get a new one because the birds are getting out of control.
Do you shoot squirrels?
I do not shoot squirrels.
Are you saying that just because we're on video?
No.
Okay.
Before I moved back to Evansville, I lived in a little small city where shooting squirrels was absolutely okay. But no, I don't shoot squirrels.
What did you shoot with your pellet gun?
I shot moles. We had a lot of moles.
So you did shoot animals.
What else is a pellet gun?
I don't know why that struck me as funny, but the idea of shooting moles.
Well, because every once in a while, my yard was ravaged, okay? And every once in a while, they'd pop their little heads up, and I could shoot them. But then, and this is how country...
It's unfair. They can't see it coming.
This is how country this little city was. Then I got 2 stray, like, wild cats. Feral cats.
Wild cats?
Yeah, crazy. Well, not wild cats as in, like, animals.
Wild.
Feral cats.
Cats.
And I didn't have moles after, like, 3 months. So, that's how country this little city was that I lived in Boonville, Indiana.
Oh, I know about some Boonville.
No moles were harmed during the filming of this video.
Well, wait, we're not done. That sounds like a we're done thing. What were we saying?
Before the pellet gun?
Pellet gun. So when you what you would do, my pellet gun shot low. You know what I mean? Because it's not like a high powered thing. And so you have a tin can sitting out there on a rock, and you stand like, I don't know, 30 feet back or something, and you try to fire. If you aim right at it with my pellet gun, like put the thing right on it, it's going to hit the dirt in front of or it's going to hit the rock that the tin can's sitting on. You actually have to aim above a few inches, and then you'll hit the can, right?
So you're saying aim at the ideal. Well, yeah, aim at the ideal, and even if you don't hit the target, you at least hit something.
Yeah, you hit closer to the target than you would have.
Or you go back to the bow and arrow. Right?
Wait a minute. Sensei Roth's going to fix the analogy.
Yeah, because what you're saying is...
Don't aim better than the ideal.
Yeah,
is that what I'm saying?
Exactly. You're saying, okay, so here's the thing. This might come across as idealistic, and I'm sure it does, but guess what? I mean, I'm sorry, that should be the church. But yeah, you've got to aim above. No, that shouldn't even be the ideal. We should have an ideal even higher than that.
Yes, aim for the higher ideal.
Right. But what you're really talking about is the fact that there's this thing called trigonometry that you have to do.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, okay.
Just aim at
this
something.
Point,
if you draw, let's go back to the bow and arrow thing to save this analogy.
Okay.
Okay. The target, we'll assume, is the ideal. If you don't hit the bullseye, but you hit on an outer ring, you still at least aimed for it, and you got somewhere on the target.
No.
If you don't draw your bow at all, you're not doing anything.
No. Right? I can fix the analogy for both of you. Are you ready to see some magic? All right, here it is. There's the tin can. Diet Coke. Coca-Cola does not underwrite this program yet. I'm looking at you, Coca-Cola. And so this is the ideal. The Diet Coke can is the ideal. All right? Don't aim here. Aim here. Right? Don't just like, well, there's the idea. Okay, just forget it. Forget it. I mean, I think that technically works.
This is unsalvageable at this. You should have ended with my no animals were were harmed thing.
But look, no, but they missed this, and this has been fun. But the thing about it is this. People get the point of the analogy, right? Do you get the point of the analogy?
I do.
Okay, and you get the point of the analogy? Okay, the point is...
It sounds idealistic. Well, okay.
Aim high, and then you'll hit the target, or at least get closer to the target than you would have.
You may never get to the ideal, but if you don't shoot at all, you're never going to get anywhere than where you're at.
Because basically what people do is they say... Shut it.
You miss all the shots you don't take, Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, you're right.
Basically, though, what people do is they say, it's like people are more scared of being...
This is our show. This is our show on the air. Any questions?
Basically, what people are doing, though, is they're saying they're more scared of being perfect than they are being sinners. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like people will say, like if you walk into a Sunday school classroom and you say, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect.
Right.
They'll be like, whoa. Nobody's perfect. That's what they'll say.
Right.
Every time. But if you come in and you say, I'm a sinner, they'll be like, man, we're all sinners. Come on in. Right. Welcome to the club. Whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, that's true. But why are you guys so scared of the concept of aiming for perfection?
Right.
We know because Romans 3:23 tells us that none of us are ever going to be perfect this side of glorification, right?
Right.
But the fact is, we should aim for it. I should get up every day and think, I'm going to be perfect today.
Yeah, because Jesus said so.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, because Jesus isn't cared about you being perfect. Jesus cares about you trying to be perfect. That's the karate analogy. You'll never achieve perfection, but you will pursue it every day, and more so every day.
I was waiting. I was not willing to end the show until we got one karate analogy.
There you go.
So there it is. All right.
After 10 minutes of bad analogies, we get the karate thing, and we can get this one over with.
We hope that you will come and learn well thought out analogies, perhaps from Leighton Flowers, I guess.
Not from us.
But you can do that by becoming a student at Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary. Up behind us here, we've got 2 posters, Engaging the Cults with Dr. Braxton and Hunter. Don't worry, the analogies in that class have been thought out for years, okay? And then, I'm afraid I've got like sweat stains. And then systematic logic with Dr. Jonathan Pritchett. He's pretty good. You need to come and check out those classes. But guess what? We got a host of other courses. Maybe you want to be a Christian counselor. Maybe you want to be a Christian apologist. Maybe you want to be a preacher. Maybe you want to be a New Testament scholar or an Old Testament scholar. Here's the thing. Whatever it is you want to do, even if you just want to be a lay person who knows about stuff and can deepen their own Christian walk, you need to become a student at Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary, because guess what? 100% distance learning. You don't even have to come here for graduation. You don't have to come for on-campus modules. You can go through one of these degree programs and you can see. Let me tell you something. I've seen these other courses at other schools, and I'm currently taking one. And what they are is just, they're good. You're getting good stuff. These other schools, particularly the one I'm going to, they're good schools. But the thing about it is, all you're getting is a chat room, and then occasionally a little video or some audio, or you answer a question your professor tells you to answer. But the thing is, we're going to offer you minimum in the graduate level programs, 8 hours of video content in every webinar class that you take. And in the undergraduate, minimum, 6 hours? Something like that?
Yeah.
And you're going to get...
Plus other video content.
Yeah, other videos, other stuff. Sometimes we'll put one of these podcast episodes in there if it's pertinent. And you're going to get all that content, and you're going to know your professors, and you're going to hear their voice, and you're going to...
And have live interactions.
Yeah, so you need to do this. Now, let's just say that you've decided you're going to make a bad decision and not become a student at Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary. But you didn't aim for the Diet Coke can. You aimed too low, but you still did aim in the vicinity, and you're going to audit class. I'm not giving up on this. I'm not giving up on the analogy. You can still come and audit classes with us.
Fight for it, man. Fight for it.
You can come and audit classes.
Sell it.
Honestly, we think our audits are too low, don't we?
Yes.
We offer courses. I think the audit, as of this video, is $35 to audit a class.
You're talking about the price. I was saying that the amount of audits we have is...
Oh, no. We got all kinds of audits. We got audits falling out of the sky. Yeah. But the thing is, we're not asking enough for them. They're worth way more than $35. But, the thing is, the only reason we charge the $35, we would give them away for free. The only reason we charge the $35 is because we've got things we've got to do to make that happen that
Right.
It helps to cover. So
we make it affordable so that more people can audit our courses.
Yeah, because we want lay people. Honestly, I'm joking kind of about you being a Trinity student and how you're making a bad decision if you don't become one. But there are some people that honestly, a degree, you're not interested in getting a degree, but you do want to get the learning, and you can do that. So please do that. Contact us. You can visit us at Trinitysem.edu to learn formally or casually. If you want to learn even more casually, one thing you can do for sure is to hit the subscribe button. At the end of this video, it's going to be a little picture in black and white of my bald head right in the middle of the screen and down a little bit. Click that thing and click subscribe. It really helps us. And if you've stayed with us this long, this has been 59 minutes. If you've stayed with us this long, then you liked this enough that you want to get some more of this hairy ice cream that we're serving up. All right, so make sure that you check that out and visit us at braxtonhunter.com. We look forward to seeing you again at Trinity Radio.